Everyone in subway story. But this one was never supposed to be heard. March 8, 2025, 11:52 p.m. Jared Flynn was a civil engineer, contracted by the MTA, to inspect structural damage in the older tunnels beneath Times Square, the area under concern Track 61. The long-abandoned presidential train platform, once used secretly by FDR, had started registering vibrations, though it had been sealed off for decades. Most New Yorkers didn't even know it existed. Jared brought a compact team, his assistant Rosie, tech operator Malik, and security consultant Valdez. They entered via a maintenance hatch 4 blocks south, just after midnight. What they found was more than dust and decay. There were fresh footprints, small, like a child's, leading deeper into the darkness. "I thought this place was sealed," Jared asked. "It was welded shut in 1996, Valdez replied, checking the lock, which had clearly been cut clean. They followed the prints down an old service stairwell where the scent hit them, iron, rot, and stagnant breath, as if the tunnel had been exhaling quietly for years. Malik's equipment flickered. Static hissed. Their radios died one by one. Then they found the door, a rusted metal slab embedded in concrete, painted over a dozen times and long forgotten. But someone or something had recently uncovered it. Etched crudely across the center, beneath all the grime, "Do not listen, do not listen." The moment the rusted handle of the forgotten door, a low vibration hummed through the soles of their boots like a heartbeat inside the tracks. "No power down here," Malik muttered, looking at his scanner. "But it's reading electrical pulses, like something's moving." Valdez raised his flashlight and scanned the corridor beyond the now opened door. It led into an unlit hallway with tiled walls, MTA style, but the design was all wrong. The tiles weren't white. They were brown and black, like burnt teeth, and they weren't laid in a straight pattern, but a twisting spiral that bent the eye. "Is this even on any of your maps?" Jared asked, voice low. Malik slowly shook his head. "Nope, doesn't exist." Inside, it was completely silent, not the normal subway quiet, where you still hear water dripping or air vibrating. This was oppressive, wrong, a stillness that felt like it had been waiting. Every sound they made was immediately swallowed, not echoed. Even Valdez's boots on the concrete seemed to sink into the silence. Then Rosie saw it, on the wall, half covered in dust, a child's drawing, crayon on tile, red scribbles shaped like subway trains. But the trains had faces, distorted mouths, no eyes. Dot above them, written in red wax, "IT lives where they forgot to listen." They moved deeper, following a curve in the tunnel that shouldn't have existed, and then they heard it. Not noise, not a voice, a thought inside their heads. "One of you hears me now." Rosie dropped to her knees, clutching her skull. Her ears were bleeding. "Pull back," Jared yelled, but the way out was gone. They turned to retrace their steps, but what they saw wasn't the door. It was now a brick wall, seamless, as if it had always been part of the tunnel. Valdez raised his flashlight again and it exploded in his hand. "Run," Malik screamed. They bolted down the tunnel, guided only by Malik's fading scanner and Jared's weak emergency lamp. That's when they passed the first body, or what was left of it, a shriveled figure, naked, mouth wide open, eyes gouged out. On the wall behind it, in black blood, the words, "The echo fed." Something was following them. They could hear no footsteps, but their lights flickered. Static crawled in their teeth. And Rosie, now breathing hard, whispered, "It wants me. I can still hear it." Then she stopped, froze. Her eyes rolled back. She smiled. "It's under the platform, listening always." The tunnel opened into a massive chamber, old maintenance terminal, long since forgotten, filled with rusted switchboards and cracked gauges. And in the center, a deep pit carved into the stone. It pulsed, Malik raised the scanner one last time before. It cracked in half from a sudden pressure wave. Then they heard the sound they would never forget. Not a scream, not a voice. A subway car screaming in pain. Rosie turned to face the pit and began walking toward it. Jared lunged, but she was already over the edge. She didn't fall, she vanished. Like the pit swallowed her sound, less lie. And in that silence, they heard it again, not with ears, but deep in the spine, to left. One feeds, one flees, one flees. Malik grabbed him. We're not dying down here. But the pit still pulsed like a black heart, beating against time itself. They backed away, carefully, breath held. When something in the air shifted, the silence cracked, and from behind them came a low mechanical rumble. A subway train, but not on any rail. The sound vibrated through the concrete, yet there was no light, no screech of wheels. Just the mechanical growl of something dragging metal across flesh. Jared whispered, "There are no tracks here." Then they saw it. A train, but with no headlights, no windows, no conductor. It was crawling, somehow hovering slightly above. The cracked floor, pulled by chains that moved on their own. The exterior was burnt black, like it had survived a fire caused one. Carriage doors hung open like gaping mouths, and from inside poured a smell of rot and static. Then a whisper. Inside both of them, all aboard. Malik turned to run, but the terminal walls had changed. The pit was gone. The exit was gone. Everything behind them now led into the train, and it was moving closer. Slower than any real train, but unstoppable. Jared didn't wait. He jumped onto the platform and into the first car, trying to find a way through. Malik followed, swearing. The door slammed shut behind them. Inside, it was freezing. Not just cold, the air was wrong. Dense, like it came from a place without sun or time. Rows of seats lined either side of the car. But they weren't empty. At first. They looked like passengers. Then Malik realized they weren't alive. Desiccated corpses, still in modern clothes. Some wore security uniforms. One even had a faded NYPD badge. Their faces were twisted in expressions of terror, not fear of pain. But the moment they lost their minds, and every single one of them had black wax stuffed into their ears. Jared stepped back in horror and bumped into something. He turned. There was no door behind them anymore, just more seats. Rows and rows of decaying passengers, dozens, maybe hundreds, all facing forward, all silent. Then they heard a bell. Ding ding. A mechanical female voice echoed overhead, warped by static. Next stop. Never left. Doors will remain closed. The train began to move, but not through a tunnel, through something else. The windows didn't show the usual black tunnel walls. They showed faces, pressed up against the glass, twisting, bloated, screaming, but there was no sound. Just mouths, stretching wider than humanly possible, and behind the faces, cities burning, oceans draining, skies opening to reveal something too large and too terrible to name. Malik clutched his cross, muttering prayers. Jared turned to him, pale. "I think this is the route it takes. The thing in the pit. This is how it feeds." They began moving from car to car, searching for an end. Each one worse than the last. In one, the walls were covered in names carved with fingernails. In another, the seats were missing and the floor was soft, flesh like. At the fourth car, Jared fell to his knees. I can't keep going." But Malik pointed at the next door. Someone stood inside. Rosie. She was sitting calmly on a seat, eyes glassy, face expressionless, but her hands moved. She was drawing on the fogged window. With her fingertip, a subway map twisted, overlapping itself, showing lines that never existed. At the center of it all, Times Square, surrounded by red. When she looked at them, her eyes had no pupils. "You came the wrong way," she said softly. It hears through your memories now. Then the window behind her shattered inward, and something pulled her backward, screaming silently, into the dark between worlds. The wall healed over. She was gone. Jared was breaking. We're gonna die here. But Malik held him up. No, he said. We're gonna get out. We just have to find the engine. Cut the power. Do you even know if it has an engine? Malik's eyes were cold. We're going to find out. And so they continued. Through the ghost train with no end. Through time that stopped meaning anything. Until they saw the final car. The conductor's booth. And standing at the controls was Jared. Or something that looked like him. Jared staring at himself standing inside the conductor's booth. The double wore the same clothes, same blood-streaked shirt, same scuffed boots, but its face was wrong. Too smooth, too clean. The eyes were empty, glassy, and dark as tunnel. Water. Its smile didn't move the rest of its face. Malik grabbed his arm. That's not you. The double raised a hand and waved slowly. Then, in a voice too distorted to be human, it said, "Welcome back, Jared. We missed you in the dark." Jared stepped closer, unable to stop himself. "Why? Do you look like me?" The reflection tilted its head. "You were here before, don't you remember? Everyone comes back." Malik shook him. "We need to go. Don't talk to it." But it was too late. The mirrored Jared pressed its palm against the glass. The train lurched, the lights flickered, and the entire booth's wall turned into a mirror, a perfect reflection. But not of the train. They were in a different version, filled with hanging bodies instead of seats. Their own faces stared back from above, pale, open-eyed, gently swaying. Then the reflection changed again. Now it showed Times Square, the real one, burning, billboards flashing static, tourists screaming, subway doors vomiting out, crawling shadows. No one could stop it. "Let us in," the conductor whispered from the mirror. "One crack in the surface, 1 second of doubt, and we'll be free." The real Jared backed away. Double quotes, "No, I don't know what you are, but you're not me." The conductor smiled wider. Its mouth opened, and kept opening inside. Dozens of tiny hands reached out. The mirror cracked, then exploded. Glass rained down like teeth, slicing Malik's cheek as he dove in front of Jared. The air screamed. Beyond the broken booth, the tracks reappeared, real metal, glowing faintly. A tunnel, leading somewhere. Somewhere real. Jared helped Malik up. "Run." They raced through the splintered conductor's booth into the tunnel. The train behind them groaned furious now. Doors slamming open and shut, shrieking metal and metal. It began dragging itself after them like a dying beast, sparks flying from the floor. The tunnel collapsed behind them with each passing second, but ahead a hatch, a ladder, a manhole. Jared reached it first and climbed. Malik followed, bleeding. They burst through the rusted lid into the night air. Times Square above them, real again. Or so they thought. Something was wrong. The billboards flickered in reverse. Cars moved but made no sound. Everyone on the street stood still, not frozen, but paralyzed like mannequins. A woman nearby turned her head mechanically and stared at them. Her mouth opened and whispered, in Rosie's voice, "You're still not out." Then she shattered into dust. Jared dropped to his knees. "I thought we escaped." Malik just pointed. A train. That train now sat in the middle of the street, half sunken into the pavement, its windows glowing with flesh-colored light. From inside, 1,000 whispering voices repeated, "Bring more, bring more, bring more." Then, Malik's phone buzzed. He looked. A message from an unknown number. "Final departure in 7 days. Times Square Terminal. 1 seat remaining." Attached was a photo. Jared, asleep in his bed, taken from the foot of the mattress. Malik looked up. Jared was gone. Only his voice, echoing faintly in the wind. "You hear it now too, don't you? The silence, it never ends." To be continued in Part 5. The one who stayed behind. The one who stayed behind. Malik did. Not after Jared vanished. Not after the message. He had barricaded himself inside a motel in Queens, far from the neon haunts of Times Square. But every night, he heard it again. The low grinding wail of that train. First, it came from the pipes, then the closet, then the mirror. He smashed every reflective surface in the room, covered the windows in duct tape, destroyed his phone. Still, it found him. On the 6th night, the whisper came from inside his pillow. "Your seat is waiting," Malik screamed, flinging it across the room. Mandate ticket slid out of the pillowcase. Times Square Terminal, July 19, 2025. Final departure passenger, Malik Rowe. Small note was handwritten on the back. "He stayed for you." At 11:45 p.m. on July 19, Malik stood outside the closed subway entrance of 42nd Street Station. He should have run. He should have left the state, the country, but something inside him compelled him back. Not guilt, not fear. Memory. Because he remembered something that hadn't happened yet. Himself. Riding that train. Rosie, calling for help. Jared screaming in the dark. He descended the empty steps. Inside, the turnstiles were covered in a thick, wet black moss. No staff. No passengers. No ads on the walls, only handwritten flyers that said things like, "Missing. The sound of your voice we see through the glass. Don't look at yourself too long." The platform ahead was rotted, but one train sat there. That train. Same peeling paint. Same windowless cars. A faint, pulsing light from inside, like a heartbeat. Malik stepped inside, and the train welcomed him. The lights flickered into a warm, candlelit glow. Carpets were laid across the metal floor. Photos of Times Square, smiling people, balloons and birthdays lined the walls. A strange, mechanical voice greeted him. "Welcome home, Malik. Departure imminent." He tried to exit, but the doors had vanished. Only rows of empty seats now, and at the far end, a figure hunched forward, whispering to itself, "Jared," but changed. Hair matted with black oil. Eyes too wide, pupils like bottomless wells, skin that twitched every few seconds, as if something inside were moving. Malik stepped closer. Jared, his friend, looked up slowly. "You came back," he rasped. "You shouldn't have." Malik crouched. "We can leave together. Whatever this place is, it can't hold us if we fight." Jared smiled. "You don't get it. I'm part of it now." And then Jared opened his mouth. Not to speak, but to release something. A voice. Noah. Choir of voices. Thousands. Whispering, begging, laughing. Malik clutched his ears and screamed. Jared stood, now taller. His shadow stretched the length of the train, and the lights went out. In the pitch black, the announcement came. Next stop, the last reflection. The train shifted violently, and Malik was thrown into a mirror. Only this time, the reflection showed Rosie, crying alone. In a subway car, she turned to the glass and whispered, "Help me. He brought me here. You brought me here." Behind her, the train's interior changed, flesh instead of seats, eyes instead of lights. Malik screamed and smashed the mirror. When the shards fell, he was alone again. No Jared, no Rosie, only a voice over the speaker. Final choice. One may leave. Choose. Malik looked around at the empty rows, then at the conductor's booth, and his own reflection staring back. "Let Rosie go," he said. "Take me instead." The train hissed. The lights flared red, then white, and a door opened. From it, Rosie stumbled out, coughing, eyes wide, gasping. "Malik." He smiled weakly. "Run." She hesitated. "No, I'm not leaving you." But the door began to close. "Run." She sprinted, vanishing into a blinding tunnel light. The door sealed, and Malik turned to face the final car. Inside waited a seat, engraved with his name. Opposite it sat a tall black figure in a conductor's uniform. No face, only a shifting mask of glass. The conductor raised a finger to its lips. She just listened, and the train disappeared into the dark. Rosie did not out. One moment, Malik was yelling at her to run. The next, she was outside the station, sprawled in the middle of 7th Avenue. The early morning traffic frozen, as if the world itself had paused to let her out. But the people passing her by didn't see her, didn't hear her. A siren wailed somewhere in the distance, but it sounded like it was coming from under the ground. She screamed Malik's name, again and again, but his name stuck to the air, like glue, no echo. Later, she told NYPD everything. They thought she was crazy. They never found Jared. They never found Malik, and when they sent a crew down to investigate Times Square station, all they found was a sealed gate, labeled Underground Line, out of service since 1972. But that wasn't true. Rosie knew what she saw, and when she returned later, the moss was still growing. 2 weeks later, July 31st, 2025, Times Square. Station reopened to the public after electrical repairs. The media covered the blackout. No mention of missing persons, no mention of screams heard by night workers, but commuters began whispering that sometimes, when the platform was empty, you could hear a train come through. No lights, no brakes, just the sound, and sometimes someone sitting alone on the platform, mouthing something you couldn't hear until you saw your reflection. Rosie's apartment, midnight. Rosie sat in silence, clutching the one thing that remained, the mirror shard she had grabbed before she ran. She had never meant to keep it, but it called to her now. Inside it, she could see glimpses, a tunnel, rows of seats, and someone sitting by the window, watching her from inside the glass. Malik. He hadn't aged, he hadn't moved, but his eyes were full of agony. Every night she tried to speak to him, but there was only silence, until tonight, from the mirror, she finally heard the whisper, "You shouldn't have left me, it's waiting for you too." Suddenly, the shard grew warm in her hand. The reflection shifted. Now she saw herself not in her apartment, but on the train, sitting beside Malik, unmoving. Her skin was paler, her smile unnatural, but her eyes were alive, watching her. Rosie dropped the shard, but it didn't fall. It hovered, spinning, and from every mirror in the apartment, bathroom, hallway, even the microwave's door, Malik's face stared out. The last sound she heard that night was the soft, familiar ding of a subway door opening. August 1st, 2025. Police reports incident, sudden disappearance. Rosie Valdez, 28, last seen, apartment 1407, West 45th Street, TAD, detail. All reflective surfaces in apartment shattered from the inside. 1 month later, Times Square Station 2 MTA workers took a smoke break by the edge of the lower platform, joking about rats and ghosts. Then one of them froze. "Hey, you hear that?" A low rumble, faint, rhythmic, chhh, chhh, chhh. They stepped closer to the tracks. No light, no train. But the tunnel was breathing, and in the flicker of the emergency lights, they both saw a reflection, not their own, but of two people staring back, a man and a woman, smiling, mouths moving. And though the workers couldn't hear it, if they had listened closely, they might have caught the whisper. "One more seat, Just one more. Just one more."